Well, I think that the so-called traditional left and the so-called traditional right have way more in common with each other. And as part of the 99%, we have basically the 1% who's making a ton of money off of taking our rights away. Essentially, we have far more in common as a common enemy with the 1%. And this whole idea of Republicans versus Democrats, both parties are selling us down the river, and both parties are serve the 1%. And I think that most everyone who's reasonable, who you talk to in person, agrees on some very fundamental things. I mean, yes, you do have a right to a home, to be safe, on some land. You have a right to farm that land. Whether you have a right to dump motor oil in a stream that flows to your neighbor's land so that they can't, have the same rights to life and the pursuit of happiness. I think pretty much everyone would say that that's not, that's not acceptable. So. Right. I think that there is a tremendous amount of common ground. I mean, I think there's been a tremendous amount of resonance with the property rights element, with the libertarian saying, I should be able to do whatever I want as long as it doesn't harm others. And that basic rule, I think we've seen a lot of people question their very stringent adhesion to a specific political ideology, and instead start to realize that, look, we have, like, I've always considered myself a liberal, and I've typically voted that way. And then through this campaign over the last year or two, I began speaking with a lot of Tea Party people, a lot of people who are more conservative, and I found a lot of conservative bones in my body that I didn't know I had. So I think that we are beginning to realize that we need to set aside these false dichotomies that, like, Fox News and MSNBC and basically the whole mainstream media outlets love to stir up. They love to have, the 1% wants nothing more than to have, the red and the blue states fighting out and red and blue ideologies, and meanwhile they can, while we're all busy fighting each other and hating our neighbor, they can go ahead and go and destroy the watershed with fracking and install the smart grid at our expense, making us suffer. So I think people are coming together and saying, look, this is ridiculous. On the other hand, there is this sort of corporate environmental agenda afoot, and this is being backed by, unfortunately, the EDF, Environmental Defense Fund, Natural Resources Defense Council. Sadly, the Sierra Club has really fallen victim to this sort of corporate takeover, where corporations look at these groups, say, look, they're powerful, they got lots of membership, lots of popular appeal, and there's this creeping sort of attitude that I would say is extraordinarily disturbing and alarming, and that is that, well, we're in such dire straits with climate change that if a few people have to get sick or die, well, that's just that's the way the cookie crumbles. And I guess if you want to make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. And we're facing a crisis, and if a few people have to die, then so be it. And that's the kind of beginnings of an attitude that led to the Holocaust and Nazi Germany, and it's this failure of respect for human life, right? And a sort of command and control attitude where we're going to solve this through market mechanisms, through capitalism, whether it kills us or whether it kills your grandmother or your sister, and it's this sort of refusal to admit that the system that we're living under is fundamentally flawed, that capitalism that has no restraints and basically assumes a limitless supply of raw materials, that is okay, and that just by simply tweaking the market mechanisms or putting in compact fluorescent light bulbs or putting in a smart meter, that we can continue our lifestyles and continue the way that we treat each other and the planet, and not expect to have some severe consequences. So I think there's some real, self-deception and denial going on, and increasingly a hardening of the environmental movement, which is not the direction we need to go.
Right. Well, good. I think that's affirming, because I think, as long as, theoretically, the theoretical both sides continue to evolve their positions and converge closer and closer together, I think the better off we are. And it's strange how something like a smart meter can be the kind of the rallying cry for this to take place, the point of convergence. But it's a strange universe we live in too at the same time. So
it is, and I think the smart meter has become a symbol of where our technology has gone off the rails, where we become a slave to technology rather than technology serving us, and us,
right.
using it in a balanced way and not in a way that hurts us. And it's become a symbol of false climate solutions, a symbol of corporate dominance, a symbol of where democracy has failed. And I don't think that the utility industry or the government really had any idea that this was coming. And I think that's that is a result of the arrogance that we see of people are too stupid to make decisions themselves, and people are too, we're the smart ones, we're the ones that know the answers, and we can make decisions for the public. And I think that attitude has really gotten people's backs up, and we've seen more than a dozen arrests and a lot of civil unrest around this program. People shutting down, installation yards and standing up with their neighbors, and we need to see more of that. I mean, that's what we need to know our neighbors. We need to know what's going on in our neighborhood. We need to stand together, and as long as we, stay isolated and alone, and assume that someone else is going to take care of these big problems, that's not going to happen. We need to take personal responsibility, and I think that's what the experience has been through smart meter resistance movement that's been growing. Is that look, this is an opportunity. It's not just a horrible attack and infliction of forced radiation. This is an opportunity for us to begin to reclaim what we've had for a long time and just recently lost, and that is the ability for communities to determine their own destiny and to look out for their own interests and protect ourselves. And at the end of the day, that's what builds strong neighborhoods and ensures a safe future for us.
Yeah. Are you aware of HARP by any chance?
This is the military.
Yeah.
I've read articles about it. Yeah.